Bonjour. Hello, everybody. Welcome to your late night, early morning, 9:56 p.m. Pacific time. A lot of my people are in Ontario, but you know what? Some of my people are in India and whatever, like all around the world. So who knows what time it is for you whenever you are checking this out. And yes, I'm using the cool, funky alien glowy app. Hello to whoever is joining. We're going to have a little bit of a chat tonight. We're going to get real. We're going to get serious. Here's my serious bun situation right now. So feel free to let me know where you are watching from, who I've got on here. I'd like to actually just step up, and I have the fan on, which I'm going to turn off because it's blowing open my blinds and anybody that's walking back there can see. And I'm just not in the mood. Hi, Lily. That's my cat. You'll hear her. So I made this post, and the reason that I made this post, my hair is just falling out. Oh gosh. The reason that I made this post is like a little 40 sweep or something weird there. The reason that I made this post to do this particular talk is because I see how intense it is for people to hear things, from one way versus the other. So for those on my channel that have faith in God, and for those on my channel that are like, I don't believe. So I have just learned so very much by participating with so very many people in my life, and having really honestly people in my life from all walks, many different religions, many different cultures, many different ideas about life and about like their belief system and all of these things. So I thought, let's talk about it. Why don't we just talk about it? Why has everybody got to get so serious? But I totally understand why everybody gets so serious. I do understand. Hi, everybody. Hi, Janice. Hi, Kwa. Hi, Juliana. Hi, Rex. Hi, everybody that's popping on. Hi, Phil. So, much love to everyone. Tonight, we're going to casually talk about a not so casual subject. Where to begin, honestly. So here's the thing. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that all paths lead to one. And I just want to say, so I'm just going to share my opinion and my thoughts and that type of thing. And then you're going to have your opinions and your thoughts. And we're all going to do our best to open up a space of conscious conversation. And by conscious conversation, I just mean that we're aware that there's varying truths depending on the person and what the person believes, and that it's really beautiful to be in a place in your life where you can observe that there are, what I believe, multiple truths in this vast universe, that there can actually be multiple truths simultaneously coexisting. And so that's the whole shebang, right? Coexistence. We're in 2019. Hello to everybody just popping on. Hi, Stacy. Hi, Phil. Coexistence. You've seen the bumper stickers. You've seen the t-shirts where you've got all the major religions and beliefs and that type of thing all put together, all as one. The beautiful thing, especially living in particular countries is that you're allowed to have your belief systems. You're allowed to have your faith. You're allowed free speech. You're allowed to challenge, the status quo. You're allowed to think what you want to think, and you're allowed to be who you want to be. The insult, the massive, massive insult in society is just conditioned separation. And by that, I mean that cultures and religions have defined themselves to be the only way of operating in the name of truth, the only way of, being to be holy and pure and light and this type of thing. And you see this, it's either like really overt or really covert. So it's really like either in your face and it's like preached in the scripture and really heavily indoctrinated, and you are taught to envelop this, throughout your life, and you automatically believe these things and you start to preach them and you start to practice them. The division, the like, I'm this religion and you're not, so therefore you can't make it to the kingdom of heaven, or you're in this category and you're in that category, and it's just like really, really heavily indoctrinated to the point that it creates ignorance, it creates blindness. And that's where I'm going to just take something from the scriptures right here and say it's like the blind leading the blind, or the ignorant leading the ignorant. And that's what happens with individuals that are purely indoctrinated into something and they've never taken it up upon themselves to actually contemplate, what the heck am I learning? Like, what is this? Who am I? What am I bringing into my life? What am I basing everything that I believe off of? Because there comes a point in one's spiritual evolution and where I believe like the pure growth happens. And this is why, like, trust me when I tell you, I am like, my whole life is like sleeping this, breathing this, eating this, preaching this, learning this, contemplating this in like every corner that I can, whether that is through studying like spiritual philosophy or religion or typology or psychology or everything and anything that I can get my soul on to drink, to understand better my humanitarian nature, why I am just thirsty for opportunities to lend, opportunities to help others succeed in finding joy and finding love in their life. And like, how can I do that when I only speak one language? So the conversation that I am trying to become adept in learning is God, universe, cosmos. And I mean that not just in the sense of if you have faith in a man all fluffy in the clouds that's going to come down and save you and reserve your spot in heaven. I mean for those of you too that also say, I don't believe in God and I can't stand the name of God and I just don't want anything to do with that. I hear you too, for the people that believe in the stars, the people that believe in science and outer space and a vastness and all of that, like, I get it. To me, and I know that this is going to sound hella strange to everybody on the internet or many people, but there's going to be a few of you that get what I'm saying. There is a word that a vast amount of people on the planet have an association with. That word is God. And some people have faith in that word. And some people have a vast amount of rejection against the word. So bear with me, everybody. I'm going to be like triggering, stepping on toes, opening my heart, opening my mouth, and sharing like a lot of stuff. And I promise you, from my heart of hearts, from this stage where I'm sitting, what I'm contemplating is there is a seat at the table for wherever you come from at my table. Because to me, all paths lead to one. And to me, I truly believe that anybody that's associated in my sphere is also seeking self-awareness. And if that's as far as you want to take that in terms of like a notion of some spectacular creative outside of you, then that's fine too. Like for me, what I observe and action speaks a lot louder than words, right? So it is one thing to tout, I believe in God, I am, let's just say, I'm like using examples, like I'm a good Christian, or I'm a good Muslim, or I'm a good Hindu, or I'm like a super yogi. And you go and you do these physical practices, say like you go to church, or, or you go to the mosque, or you go to temple, or you go to the ashram, okay? You go and you do that. Great. But are you showing up at the temple, at the mosque, at the church? Or are you just doing something because it's become like routine in your life? Or because somebody has told you to do it? Or because you feel like you would be a bad person if you don't do it? Are you showing up to church with sincerity? Like, are you really at church? Or are you in your mind and in your head? Are you zoned out in the clouds? Are you somewhere else? Are you 50 different directions? Are you like planning what you're making for lunch when you get there? Or like, are you just feeling like, why do I have to be here? And you're not jiving with it at all. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that walk on ceremony. And they talk on ceremony. And ceremony is beautiful. It's going to give you the element of discipline, and it's going to keep a structure in your life that has you focused most definitely in like a positive light. So there's always value to it. I'm not saying that if you find yourself feeling empty and disconnected from the establishments and the religion and the participation that you're having, that you shouldn't do it because some girl on the internet said, what are you doing? Are you really there? Because I just hit some nerve that's challenging whether or not you're actually showing up. But what I'm saying is that there's so much emphasis on this external process of how people prove the category or the level of, or the initiation unto, or the participation within by some terms of external showcasing of what it is that one's doing. But like, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing? What are you actually feeling? Like, where are you in the process of this? And like, how did you get there? Did your parents send you to church? Did your community send you to church? Did your school send you to church? What kind of church? Whose church? Do you like your pastor, your priest, your preacher? Like, do you feel connected to whatever it is that you're serving by showing up and sharing your presence and your energetic space? Some of you, yeah. And a whole lot of you, maybe, and here's what this is about. This is about like a conversation. And really, this was kind of just the reason, hello everybody else that's showing up. The reason that I sparked this is because I saw some really like passionate, heated stuff in like comments on my threads. And I thought, wow, these people are feeling really, really strong about this, to like opposing things. And like, why do people get so automatically like deeply offended with people's beliefs? And why do people feel that impulse to want to defend their beliefs, like as if it's an offense that somebody else has a different belief, rather than understand that there's like this huge myriad of where people come from with their beliefs. So the first one I'd like to shout out there, like all paths lead to one, and I don't know what you call me, but I was super interested in Christ as a child and the Virgin Mary, and like would get my parents to take me to church, and they wouldn't go to church. It would just be me at church. So I was always really religious bent. But at the same point in time, I really, really didn't like the organization of the church, and I felt there was like a lot of shadiness in the Catholic Church, and I experienced some really crappy scenarios, and so it made me have this strange complexity of feeling a huge affinity for God, the cosmos, angels, saints, the divine, Christ, but really, really not okay with the church. This is my story, and then I became interested in like spiritual pursuits and explored aspects of like various different Eastern religions and conscious studies, and even looked at Wicca, and like I went through like all these things, and then I really got into Taoism and Buddhism and the aspects of Christianity, and like I don't know, then it turned into a really, really strict adherence to the path of yoga, which there's hatha yoga, which is just asanas, and it's like preparing your body of the vessel so that you can open up the channels, which are, the different pathways on both sides of the spine that create temperature, heat and cold, and your spine is like the rod to God. So it's like I'm trying to give like some insights to different things. So this conversation is going to feel a little bit like zigzaggy, but it's really to try and illuminate various perspective. Okay. I'm going to go over like a variety of different scenarios and things like that, because my hope is that as I have been in the past, as very like close people to me have been in the past, really, really concerned or worried about other individuals or insulted by other individuals, or have this tendency to want to change other individuals, have, after receiving certain elements of understanding, bridged the gaps of ignorance that call upon us to feel like we're directly being attacked from having another perspective. So I just want to share a lot of different things, because I can understand all of these different things. I see them, I understand them. I've had the privilege of working from a spiritual perspective with thousands of people, like literally probably, 10,000 plus people over the past decade, whether it was like meditation or direct consultation or whatever, a workshop, a class, a teaching, just people coming into the shop, expressing their, belief systems and these types of things. And because it's my passion to be connected to the cosmos, I want to learn, I want to understand, I want to speak your language, because I really feel like the biggest problem on the planet right now is problems with relationship and problems with loneliness. And the loneliness is there because of all of the isolation and shame and the boxes that we put each other in, when really we're all one. And then, it's just like this division is there because of ignorance, really, honestly. It's just ignorance. Because the thing is like, English isn't better than German, and German isn't better than French, and French isn't better than, Mandarin, and Mandarin isn't better than, speaking whatever language. The bottom line is that your belief systems, just like politics, you can sit in your family, or you can sit in a work environment, or you can go out for dinner, and the people sitting at the table with you may have different religions or different political backgrounds, but under certain scenarios and circumstances, when those subjects, that's what they say, like leave sex, politics, and religion, out of the conversation, out of the table, like, because they're triggers for people. And why are they triggers? It's because these are the subjects that people self-identify with and pass so much shame and judgment around, that it's just like they're ticking cultural bombs inside of everybody. And it's like they're so deeply rooted and they've been conditioned in that way that it's just like people blow up, people pop all the time when the subjects are brought up. It's like there's so much heat embedded. And why? It's because people feel very strongly that their life, that their family, that their name, that, everything that you're serving, for your country or for your organization or just for your own self goals and purpose is so strongly rooted to these structures. So I'll tell you that there is a large movement of people that have this blind conditioning, one that they've never challenged for themselves, and they might not even feel connected to it. So, and then there's other people that have had no welcoming of these systems, but it's like an inherent part of their nature. So the thing is that when you're limited to the people in a particular sphere in your life, and you haven't had the opportunity to exercise your own willpower or thoughts or this type of thing and challenge what your faith is, then you don't necessarily know. Okay, dear, thank you. What it is that you believe. So I can tell you that there's a lot of people that don't believe because of the hypocrisy that they see with those that are touting, I love God, because there's a lot of corruption in human behavior, and there's a lot of ignorance in establishment, and there's a lot of dogma that makes zero sense to operating in the world with like a humanitarian and like a collaborative, conscious way, if that makes sense. So it's like if somebody is like, I'm going to war in the name of God, like I'm going to kill these people in the name of Jesus, and this is a real thing. There is like a church that I went to. I went to like on this spree of like visiting all of these different churches and things like this back in Ontario. I'm a spiritual person. I will go to a church. I will go to a mosque. I will go to a temple. I will go to an ashram. I will go to the forest. It doesn't matter to me personally. And I don't feel shame over that. I don't allow people to make me feel ashamed over that anymore. To me, consciousness is consciousness. Self-awareness is self-awareness. God is what God is to me. And there is no, religion is to bind. So in some ways, I have a very religious interest and bent, but I'm not bound to a particular religion. I'm just not. I just see God in all of them, like in the truth, in the purest way. And I see that establishments and churches ultimately can become very corrupt because a lot of the times people that are in places of leadership have a lot of ego and aren't necessarily in it for the right reasons. Some are. There are beautiful, pastors and priests and ministers and, saints and all these. There is, but it's very hard to find authenticity, and it's very hard to find somebody with a true, authentic, pure heart that's in a place that is practicing and teaching and preaching. And it's also very challenging for me to go into establishments where, you feel like you are being judged if you don't fit this particular mold. And to me, that's the problem. It's the molding. So I do feel that finding an institution, finding an establishment, finding a religion, and these types of things that makes the most sense to you, that you can form some type of discipline in your life is really, really powerful. But I also completely understand how it has turned so very many people off. And I understand too that, there's generations where like God was God-fearing, and it was like ingrained in people that, the devil was going to come out and get you if you were bad. That's like terrifying. And that like, God would lash at you, if you did. So God wasn't impregnated as like a seed of something beautiful for a lot of people. It was impregnated as a seed of something very fearful. So there's all of these damaged concepts of the idea of God, in my opinion, right? This is my opinion, and you're going to have your opinion, and everybody will have their opinion. But it's like, so if there's somebody that says like, I don't want anything to do with that, being told that, I'm going to go to hell if I am a human and I have human thoughts and I have human behaviors, right? So it's like, it's understandable how people want to take a different approach to their life. I don't think that you could meet any scientists that observe like the cosmos, let's say for instance, that don't have like a vastly spiritual experience studying and exploring, right? Of course, read their work. It's beautiful. Read their thoughts. They're beautiful. They're conscious. So to me, when I have, scientists or people in my life that say things like, I don't believe in God, but I see them observing, and I see them practicing kindness, and I see them having really expansive philosophical thoughts, then to me, it's really no different. And I understand, because the division itself is in like these programmed ways that people have been taught to observe being a part of a particular group. And the language that we use based on our understanding is really what limits us from understanding our brothers and sisters and where people are coming from. But you can watch people, okay, so for myself, I have confidence in my beliefs. I have confidence in where I stand. I have confidence in even my very insecure, doubting, uncomfortable moments where everything is rocky and unsure and I'm in the midst of some existential rabbit hole crisis. Because for me, truth is presence. And if I can be present in the moment and I can open up to it and I can surrender to it and I can allow myself to say that I am naked and bare enough in this world that I'm open to shifting my truth as I learn, that I don't come closed-minded. I don't come with a specific set of parameters that I have been taught that tell me that this is the way. No, I gotta feel this is the way. Intuitively, like deep down inside, my soul has to resonate with what I'm doing in my life. My soul has to resonate with what it is that I believe. And it's very, very challenging to find a particular establishment that doesn't want to judge me and wants to host me as, a devotee or a disciple or a particular this or that. So for me, I go to consciousness, and sometimes my observance is under a name. Sometimes my observance is under my direct meditation and prayer focused on the concept of God, or the concept of a guru or the concept of Christ, or, just a more modeled form. And then other times, I like to remove all of that completely and feel responsible enough to walk in the world that I don't need to be associated with an identity of having a constructed form. Because, even in the Christian teachings, even in, all of these particular religions, they'll still tell you to go directly to source and that you're made of source. So if we have to always cling to a particular idea in order to move forward, we're never really taking full responsibility for our own spirituality, our own growth, our own ability to have faith, true faith. And like true faith is being able to be bare and outside the concept of any type of formed idea, especially if we're living in this 3D world and we are, in this world, but not of this world, that we are actually consciousness and there is some type of place that's beyond here. And what if we want to also examine the fact that simultaneous truths exist at once? And how do you know for certain anything? Nobody knows anything for certain except what your soul is echoing and telling you. But your experience might be vastly different from somebody beside you. And it does not mean that there isn't like reality upon reality upon reality upon reality. The same way that we see colors differently, the same way that we taste differently, the same way that we all think differently. We can all believe differently, we can have faith differently, and we can have, conscious conversations stepping outside of some confirmed reality differently. This is why I love studying elements of psychology, and I love studying typology, INF, like Myers-Briggs and Enneagram, and getting a little into socionics and these types of things. The reason is because in my experience, I truly believe it that, right now, as all of you are watching and I am here, we're all observing the same moment, but everybody is coming at it from a different lens and a different angle. And it doesn't make one person's lens or angle more true than the other. And in fact, there's zero reason to want to exert effort into changing somebody else's truth. The best thing we can do is observe our own truth, be our own highest self, our own highest example, flourish our own magnetism, and that will naturally radiate to other people. And when people feel love and people taste love, that is totally different than people being told love. We could go to church all day, any church, any temple, any non-church, non-temple, anything like out in nature, science, all of it. It doesn't matter. What matters is the energy and the presence that is available in it. To me, love is consciousness. All the primary religions and even those outside, like, believe it or not, the people that are atheists, a lot of atheists and people that don't believe are super loving, super kind people that believe in a lot of conscious principles, but they've been totally allergic to a lot of the hypocrisy and illness that's been born from institutions and churches. It's just the truth, okay? And I love Christ. I love God. I'm good with the God word. And a lot of my friends aren't, or I mean colleagues or people throughout life. A lot of my friends actually do believe in God and a lot don't. And it's like everything in between. But I don't see any division or separation in them. And in fact, there are a lot of people on the non-believing side that I see more conscious application of their behavior on a daily basis than some people that I know that are like complete churchgoers. It's just, it's how you are assimilating and transmuting your experiences in life. And what my own personal experience, with particular churches and stuff like that was that there was so much judgment passed that it created more negativity in certain people because it creates shame. And when you're indoctrinated to be ashamed of your humanity and you're being held to particular behaviors that aren't exampled, and there's like contradiction and this type of thing, it's very confusing and it shuts people off from their whole self. So I feel like church or temple or the ashram or the mosque or a place to practice, some type of religious celebration, is beautiful. It's just very, very challenging to find something that is authentic and that is sincere and that is going to help you evolve. Like, there's so much drama, because there's a lot of these places just have really immature and ignorant people governing. And you do find really, really wonderful teachers and wonderful spiritual leaders as well. It's just, you really have to have a particular bent in this direction to consistently seek out the right fit for you. But here's one thing that I can tell you. It's much better to take the energy internally that wants to lash out, or that wants to try and change somebody in their belief systems. It's much better to take that and apply it to yourself. It just is. There's no reason, there's no reason any one of us should want to take it upon ourselves to change this area in somebody's life. It's just not right, okay? When it comes to a person's consciousness and conscious evolution, there shouldn't be any fire inside to want to change somebody. You want to help somebody, that's different. You want to help other people experience self-awareness to a higher capacity because it's going to bring them joy and it's going to help to remove suffering. That's beautiful. But pushing somebody or fear-mongering, like trying to make somebody scared of like what they are, because they're not enough unless they're going to believe in this or that. To me, this is really, really, really not good. And this is why you have people that reject the concept of faith because it's so contradictory. Here's the thing, like, we're humans and we feel, and most of us pick up on shadiness or manipulation or these types of things. Our defense mechanisms go up in all ways when we feel there's an energy that lacks love. So what happens is when you have these constitutions and you have these establishments and these types of things, and they're not practicing love, they're not practicing what this idea or concept of consciousness or God is, and they're contradicting it by shaming, by blaming, by ostracizing, by separating, by, creating mass concepts of separation. That doesn't feel right. So there's a lot of people that are just like, F that. I don't want anything to do with that. And they don't like the idea of somebody sitting on a throne and being like a fluffy person in the clouds. And they might not have ever experienced a miracle in their life, so they don't believe that somebody walked the earth and created a bunch of miracles. You can't fault somebody for having that headspace when you look at the contradictions of what's happening in a lot of the establishments. You just can't. And you can't force somebody to have a particular experience. And, so you can't force somebody to experience the love of Christ if that's what you believe and that's the experience that you've had and you've had that joy. You can't force that on somebody else. They would have to have that experience themselves. That's why, there's spiritual experiences and they're illuminating and you have them. But it doesn't mean that scientist that says, I don't believe in God and I don't want to go to your church and I don't believe in any of this, when they're looking at Jupiter and Mars and starbursts and they're, studying quantum physics and, they're watching parallel potential realities simultaneously coexist and they're looking for alternate life forms, that there isn't a vastness of consciousness and that they're not also experiencing mind-boggling stuff. You know, it's so funny. The ego wants to protect us and prove our worth and our growth by, this is the thing about different personalities. Like some personalities will gauge their success monetarily. Some will gauge their success physically. Some will gauge their success on their authenticity. Some will gauge their success on their, steadfast devotion. Everybody's different. Like everybody's different. But the more we put ourselves in these situations where we feel and identify with needing other people to understand us and get us and accept us and then change to be like us, the more war we're going to have. Because kindness and love are a fluency that is outside of any borders, any boundaries, anything. So like my thing is instead of worrying so much about like what you are or needing to put a label on yourself, and instead of worrying so much what other people are and needing to put a label on them, what if we just practiced like basic currency of divinity and humanity, which is love and kindness? And how do we do that? We do that by being the most self-aware that we can. We do that by inviting in as many positive practices as we can, by trying to better ourselves. But if you're living in a like panicked state, trying to operate on principles that are religious bent, that aren't in alignment with how you actually feel, and you are judging yourself, never mind judging other people, but you're judging yourself, and you're living in shame, and you're living in fear, and all of these things, this is a good time to look at what you truly believe and look at your fear over challenging what it is that you've been taught. Because I honestly, what I'm talking about is just years and years of like working with so many people that are dealing with pain and dealing with anxiety and dealing with depression and dealing with just not loving themselves ultimately and not being able to really like love other people or understand other people because they're so self-centered, either from, like a victim state or from like a covert type of state. It's just like almost everybody's in this state, to be quite honest, because everybody thinks like everything's all personal. Everybody like walks around as if like the whole world is actually focused on them, judging them, wondering what they're doing, wondering all the things about them, when really it's not like that. Everybody's walking around in their head, having the same type of worries, the same type of fears, the same type of anxiety, burnout, like vicious cycle, rat race life type of things. And at the end of the day, everybody's looking for love. Everybody's looking to be accepted. Everybody is just looking to not have to have so much drama and so much to think about with this kind of stuff. And ultimately, people want to feel peaceful. And if you're in attack mode, you got some work to do. Because why are you wanting to attack? And if you're in defense mode, you got some work to do. Because what is it that you're defending? If person A believes in Christ and God, and person B says, I don't want anything to do with that BS, can you look? I don't know, it's so interesting for me because I see like this, I can see the same consciousness sometimes coming from people, in polar opposite fields, like the same resonation, because I understand where it came from. Like this is the thing. It's like I have so many people in my life on both sides because I do understand why people really don't want to buy into the indoctrination and the illness that religion has bled into society for so long. It's like everybody's killing people in the name of Jesus and God. And it's like, I get why people are not okay with that. But I also get the people that's like heart and soul is in like Christ consciousness and evolution and like taking that path, you know, that Trinity. And I get it. It's just like I can get the various religions. I can get the various thought processes. Why? Because I'm not afraid of loving everyone. I'm not afraid of giving space for people to have their own belief systems. And I do believe that we can all coexist and have multiple lenses and multiple truths simultaneously, and that we can all practice the common language of love and kindness and unify in that way. And if people are interested to learn about whatever path or means that you have identified with in terms of being able to walk this world and walk this earth, and you do it and it brings you more joie de vie and it brings you a sense of peace, thank you, Jet, you know, then that's beautiful. Then that's so beautiful. And if people want to learn that, they're going to approach you because your magnetism is there. Your light is there. You give people peace. People feel love around you. Like, so if there's something going on in your world and it's magical, people are going to pick up on that. They're going to feel it and they're going to flock to that. So truth will bring truth seekers. Love will amplify and surround itself with love. If you've got a whole bunch of drama and confusion and shame and judgment, that's not consciousness. That's indoctrination. So there's a bunch of confusion. There's a bunch of mixed messages. There's a bunch of truth. There's a bunch of love. There's a bunch of beautiful places to worship. And there's a bunch of beautiful souls that aren't participating in that are still consciously evolving. And you don't need to worry about trying to get them to believe in what you believe in, because they're probably doing, you know, whatever it is that works for them. And it's fine to send an extension of love to people or invite people to come to something. But what's not okay is to be sitting in an energy of like judging and, you know, pointing fingers and like unbelievably worrying yourself, you know, because people won't join your particular way of thinking or processing. You know, I named this faith versus non-faith because I see it on my timeline quite often, like people getting heated and stuff like that on my threads. And it's so funny because it makes it's sweet because like I understand people are like standing up for God, you know, that believe in God, and somebody doesn't believe in God. So then they're like standing up for God, which is really beautiful. But then I understand too, like why the people that are like, oh my gosh, you know, this is a crazy concept, because they've probably been introduced to something that's really, really unhealthy. And they don't feel that that's love. And so when you tell somebody, oh, you know, God is here for you, and they're like, what? You know, what is that? Like, look at what it is that you're practicing. Look at your hypocrisy. Look at your judgment. Look at your snickering. Look at your behavior. So, and I've seen it. I did go to a church where they were praying for people to get killed in the name of Jesus. I sat in the back row going, is this real? Like, am I actually in Western world, first class, like, church? And this is happening, like, at a Christian church? Yes. I was in another church where I go to, you know, mosques, temples, churches, like ashrams everywhere. It doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't. I go to the forest. Mostly I just go to my porch But for me, sometimes I'm in the mood to go and like sit in some space that people have made really beautiful, that there is like a conscious effort there towards me going to that place to observe God. It's like going to a wedding or something for me. I don't do it very often. I just meditate daily, and I observe God and consciousness in these concepts and going down the rabbit hole in every which way. Like, it's my life. So it's all about that. It's all about the language of trying to learn how to express light and love to others, because ultimately that is what will create wholeness and take away from some of the loneliness and the issues with relationship with self and source in others. So I'm just trying to become fluent in speaking to people to help bridge some of these gaps and these misnomers and misunderstandings, and just try and educate that there are various lenses and perspectives, and oftentimes with a little bit of conversation and a little bit of understanding, we can all get it, we can all get along, we can even accept where the other person is. So that's my focus. But I was in another church, and for somebody who has been like an ascribed, yogini for years, yoga, by the way, I talked about hatha yoga being asanas, which are like postures, is what most people know yoga is. But yoga has many different branches and elements. And the physical aspect is just to actually exercise and prepare the spine to meditate, which is where you get your direct contact. And yoga actually means union with God. So a lot of people don't realize that there are serious, devoted persons that are practicing this like very intensive path that is directed at union with God, and it is like its own religion. The hatha, like the posture aspect, is a very like minimal part. It's like an important part, because you can practice self-awareness while in those postures, and you can get the whole thing. God, consciousness can be as simple as just being present and in the moment. You don't need to know anything else other than that. Just be conscious, in your breath, in your connected state of being able to witness, like being present, not like jumping to the future, not reverting to the past, but like, how do you show up in this moment, and then like let that all go and take another step and let it all go. Like, be open. Like, what is life? You have an idea, but like, what is it if you let go of your idea and you just let it? You let life happen. This is consciousness. Stepping outside of needing to know. The ego has its role. I'm not one of those people that practices like, just be totally above the ego, outside the ego, because we need a personality. We came here for a reason. We have a particular path and we have a role to play. So we need to be our own person to navigate. The thing is having a hold on the emotions and having a hold on the persona and not letting it rule outrageously through ignorance or misbehavior or overly identifying. Understanding it's a role, but beyond that is consciousness. This is what I believe, so you can, oh my gosh, my son's just freaking out on the games. It's like F-bomb central. That drives me absolutely bonkers. But it's like the teenage years, and yeah, sorry, I had to take my earphone off. I was like, is that happening back there? It's happening back there. Practice love, practice kindness, be open is what I say. That's what I preach. And like every time you're triggered to want to defend something, I say take that energy and invest it in you. Just invest it in loving more or understanding more, whatever it is that you believe, and challenge yourself to open up to other religions and other people and other belief systems and have conversations. Like, it's genuinely fascinating to sit down with other people and be like, well, what is it that you really believe? And why do you believe that? And like, what did your parents believe? And what did your culture believe? And like, have you ever even challenged that? And like, where or what inspired you to challenge the things that you have challenged? I think conversation is really key. But in order to be able to have a conversation, you have to be willing to be open. You have to enter into something not with the notion that you want to change somebody else's mind, but enter into the notion of saying that I value you, and I value that you're an adult or a child or whoever you are, and that these are your own thoughts and these are your own beliefs, and you're willing to share them with me. You're willing to bring them into this very vulnerable space where people oftentimes reject having openness, and that you're willing to show up and you're willing to be vulnerable, knowing that there's so much judgment around this, and that it's something that's been so isolated from really talking about. There's just so much judgment around it. It's just crazy. It's just mind-boggling, to me. So I just encourage you for your own self. Mine don't drop the F word, but that word, yeah, it's, mine definitely dropped the F-bomb. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat that, not even in the least bit. My youngest one, not so much. He started lately. He goes to and fro, but I remember being like 15, 16 in that age, and everybody was swearing all the time, but just not at home. But the thing is, now that they're gaming and they're doing all this social stuff online, it's like they're in their room and I can hear them. And sometimes I freak out, and other times I let it go. I really haven't found my kind of sweet spot for this. I just feel like it's an uncomfortable expression that I use the F word. So I just don't like them using it constantly. Like, that drives me crazy. It's like, here we are. That's one of those things where it's like there's all of this stuff too, right? And indoctrination and rules, and like, in order to be a good parent, you should do this. In order to be a good kid, you should do this. But like, I'm trying to show up in a different light with that too, and also say, like, what do I actually believe? This is the way that my parents raised me, but how did that affect me, and what was, positive and what wasn't, and like how much of that came from what their parents said and what society made them feel would be the proper thing. How many of those things propelled me to have successful habits now versus pain, and closing off and lack of authenticity with myself. And what am I doing with my kids with that now? It's, yeah, so it's like, it's a really, really, really messed up time with technology, because they are super bent on that. And it is like ultimately a lot of what they want to do. But why? Like, is it because it's addictive? Is it because they've found less joy in experiencing other parts of their life? That's like with my kids, they've had a lot of trauma, and video games are an escape. And it's also something where they feel confident because they are in control of different levels and things like that, where they felt like they haven't had that control in their own life. And then it's also negative because it's something that they can just escape reality with. So it's like, it's both, it's both positive and it's both negative. And we're trying to figure that all out. And it's hard. It's crazy, actually. Because we were so different. Like, we wanted to just go outside and play. And when you see like that not existing in your own kids, it's less about me being upset or annoyed or something like that they want to be on the games. And it's more like a genuine concern. Like, why is that not a part of you? Like, why don't you want that? Like, what has isolated you from that? And what I see is that it's really the control, like it's really feeling control in their own life and having things that they feel positive about because they had trauma, in their own life and then also at school. So then it's like there's this opportunity to win at something and be great at something and have like all these built-in success levels, and it's like right there. There's no external having to go out anywhere to go and get that. It's like it's accessible. They can do it in a safe space where, they're not being confronted with anything else in the world. So it's very interesting. And it's a really important subject. It's a deep subject, but it's like there's this very narcissistic ingrained patterning for parents to want to be kids to be extensions of them. And so there's all of this pressure from a parenting perspective to have your kids, in this neat and tidy box that have checked off all of these different things to say that you've been a successful parent, because there's been so much conditioning and lack of authenticity in our upbringing, trying to force us to be a certain particular mold that got the white picket fence to have the kids to do this, to do that, that when we see the expression not looking like that neat, tidy package that was everything that we were waiting for when we grew up, to now see that disheveled, there's this real break in the psyche and this like vicious loop. So a lot of parents want that their children to be an extension of them, and when that's not being met, there's a lot of resistance, and now we repeat the cycle in another way. So I try and step back and I don't know what's going to happen to my kids, because there's a lot of messed up stuff that's going on in my parenting because I'm not doing things the traditional way. But I also feel like I can't approach trauma in the traditional way, because then they're going to end up with all of these issues and woundedness that don't get worked through, that end up repeating in other types of poisonous or tied and bound behaviors or lack of joy in their adult life. So it's kind of messy right now for me, while I'm trying to sort through how do we unpack this and how do we get a grip on this in a way that might be sustainable, because I feel like sustainable joy isn't something that's very accessible to most people in their life, and that's why we're all on these pursuits trying to learn so much, which is hence the conversation tonight. Who is God? Who is God? I don't know, I know who God is to me. I know the conscious concept that I have. I know it evolves all the time, and I know it takes different shapes and different forms, and that I'm open to that. But I don't know what God means to you. And what does God mean to you? That's the thing. That's the conversation people should be allowed to have, permitted to have, permitting people can show up and talk about it in a conscious way, that's aware of. It's not you have to sugarcoat or you have to worry about, saying, I don't believe the same thing as you. That's fine. It's just doing it in a way where you're not pressuring other people or making people feel like they're lesser than, or their life, they're going to hell if they don't believe what you believe in, or that they're crazy if they do believe in God and you don't. Just be conscious. And to be conscious is to be expansive. Consciousness is expansive. So entering a conversation with the opportunity to expand your horizons by the end of it, that's the hope. And all of our communication is to expand. Either we're helping others expand, or we're expanding, or simultaneously both parties are expanding. So this is the hope. So my phone's about to die. Much love to everybody. Thank you so much for showing up here. I really appreciate all of you guys. And sorry if, any thoughts were unfinished, or if what I said didn't make sense. Please just ask and I'll clarify. And of course, this is a huge conversation, and this is just a short period of time and just a few examples. Oh, right. The one that I never finished was saying that I went into a church and they were saying that, like acupuncture was the devil's work and like yoga was the devil's work and all this stuff. And I'm sitting in there going, wow, this is just blowing my mind, that this is what's being preached. And so it's just, you never know. You just never know. And we just have to be open to exploring and finding what fits and what feels good for us. So much love, all of you. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Jet. Much love to all of you. I'm going to read these comments more thoroughly when I get off. But I'm wishing you all a fabulous evening. Mwah. Thank you.